Did you say anything? Because it broke up on my end.
No, I think it was just some feedback maybe in the background.
Okay.
We are live now.
Okay. Like to call the regular meeting for August the 20th at 3:30, 2020 to session. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hopkins.
Present.
Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Present.
Commissioner Burrell.
Here.
Commissioner Cawthorn.
Present.
Commissioner Gage Watts. I think I heard a yes. Commissioner Talafera. Commissioner Atkins.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez. Commissioner Lazarus.
Here.
Commissioner Epperson.
Here.
Okay, so if I heard the Commissioner Gage Watts correctly as being present, you have 2 absent and 10 present. You do have a quorum.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure that the clerk got Commissioner Chavez. I'm not sure that he came through properly.
I did, yeah. I heard his yes. It did come through after I had called the next name, but I did hear it. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
Okay. Down to the invocation and the pledge. And Commissioner Epperson, would you lead us in the invocation, and Commissioner Atkins, would you do the pledge?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will read a Bible scripture that was in one of our Sunday school lessons. And it comes from Proverbs, the 9th chapter, the 6th verse. Forsake the foolish and live, and go in the way of understanding. May God have a blessing to the readers, hearers, and doers of his words. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Okay, for the Pledge of Allegiance, could you all please stand and face the flag that's on your screen? Active duty military, retired military, and first responders may render a brow salute. Everyone else, please place their hand over their heart and repeat after me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, now we're at agenda additions. I am told there are a couple of agenda additions today.
Yes, Mr. VP, I have one.
Okay. Commissioner Burrell.
Mr. VP, I'm requesting to authorize the parish administrator to inform the Caddo Parish Register of Voters to authorize and establish an early voting satellite location at 3015 Greenwood Road, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71109, which is the Louisiana State Exhibit Museum. This location should be prepared for the fall 2020 early.
I second.
Okay. Do I need to finish, or that's?
Go ahead and finish, Commissioner Burrell. And I know I don't know who that second was, but
Commissioner Epperson.
Okay, we'll catch
you. As I was saying that this location should be prepared for the 2020 early voting open primary for the presidential election, congressional election, and election voting period beginning October 20th and ending October 27, 2020. One of the reasons why I'm recommending this location is that it's centrally located to the city, but at the same time, it's in the western portion of the city also. It has good parking. I believe that if the weather were inclement, then it would provide good shelter. It's located in the urban center where you have a greater density in population. It is west of downtown, and and very accessible for persons who have a public transit need, as well as accommodating and convenient to those who have personal transportation, actually taking I-20, I-220, I-49, as well as 3132. So I think it's kind of an ideal location for a satellite location.
Okay, we have an agenda addition to add to our agenda, a early voting satellite location. Motion was made by Commissioner Burrell and seconded by Commissioner Epperson. We will now see if we want to have this added to our agenda. Need the public hearing first or the second after that? Public
Let's
hearing
do the
first.
public hearing first.
All right. So it's now open for public hearing. All in favor? And you want to give them the number to call in?
Sure, yeah, the number, if somebody wants to call in for or against the addition of this item, would be 226-6596. Again, that's 318-226-6596.
All right, we'll give them at least 2-3 minutes to determine if someone want to have public comments on that. And if not, we'll close the public hearing on that.
Great. We'll let you know if any comments come in.
Okay.
The phone is ringing right now. We'll see if that's a public comment. We do have a caller on the line. Are y'all want to go ahead and hear the public comment?
Yes, it's pertaining to the agenda addition.
I'm told it is.
Okay, yes, put it through.
Okay, Michelle, can you connect the caller, please? She's explaining the process to them right now. They'll be online in just a sec.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, it is. I'm going to put you on speaker. Go ahead and state your name for the record, and you can give your comment, okay? All right, hold on one second. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you can go ahead with your comment.
Good evening. This is John Glover, and I was trying to get an understanding as to who had the authority to add new locations for early voting. Is it you, the parish, or do you all have to get approval from the state? Thank you.
Does that conclude your comment?
Yes.
Okay, have a good day. And I think that's all of our callers.
Thank you very much. We've received no electronic public comments on this item either.
Okay, I would say that the public hearing is closed on this agenda addition.
Okay, and also just to let y'all know, I believe Commissioner Taliaferro is on the line now too. Okay, so did y'all want to take up the next? Like, I understand there's another one, but
You have to vote.
I don't have it.
Let's vote on that.
Let's go ahead and vote on this one, Jeff, and then we'll address the second one.
Great. Are we ready to vote now?
Yes.
Great. Commissioner Hopkins.
No.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell.
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage-Watt.
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro.
No.
Commissioner Atkins,
No.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
No.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion does not pass to be added to today's agenda. It must be unanimous.
Correct. Is there another agenda addition?
Yes, you see my hand?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to have an agenda addition to request that the parish attorney would immediately initiate appropriate action to file a lawsuit on behalf of the Caddo Parish Commission for an injunction suspending the intent of Act 302, which was enacted by the Louisiana State Legislature relative to virtual meetings and agenda items of local governments with the appropriate judicial court system.
Second. So we have a motion and a second to request the parish attorney to file an injunction on Senate Bill 302. We're now open for public hearing.
And that number is 318-226-6596, if anybody would like to call for or against adding this item.
And we'll give them the same courtesy of 2 or 3 minutes.
Don't appear to be receiving any calls on this one.
Okay. Public hearing is now closed. Ready to vote now.
Okay, Commissioner Hopkins,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell. Commissioner Burrell, I didn't hear you.
He's
You're
muted.
muted, bro.
Got it. I think I got it. I think I got your vote.
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Taliaferro,
No.
Commissioner Atkins,
No.
Commissioner Chavez,
No.
Commissioner Lazarus,
No.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
Okay, that motion is not does not carry, will not be added to the agenda today because it was not unanimous. So
Okay. Next item.
that brings us to citizens' comments. And so again, we have stated the number already, but for the public hearings, now if we could state it for citizens' comments, that number is 226-6596 if anybody has citizens' comments, and we have not received any electronic comments.
Give them at least another 2 minutes.
We do have a caller right now. We're trying to identify if it's a public comment or not. We do have a caller on the line.
Okay, put them through.
Okay, Michelle, can you connect the caller, please?
Okay, with your comment.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Michael Lafitte. Calling in regards to polling locations, I think it's shameful that if we have commissioners here do not want us to have different locations when it comes to early voting and voting. So I believe it is truly shameful not to go with that.
Does that conclude your comment? Sir?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Okay, have a good day.
Any other?
That's the only public comment or caller that we have on the line.
All right, next item.
The next items, we have a couple items on our agenda that are on there just because of the way our agenda is set up, but because of the teleconference requirements, we will skip over visitors and special resolutions and adopt regular session minutes and fund ourselves at communiques and committee reports.
Any commissioners got any communiques?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Atkins, I got you, and then Commissioner Evers. You go ahead, Commissioner Atkins.
He's muted.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. This is a question for Dr. Wilson, if that's appropriate in this format.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Wilson, can you remind us all where we are with the early voting, with the addition of early voting locations? As I understand it, we have permission to expand by one currently. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That was my understanding. There have been some suggestion that we expand by a total of 3. But just for the record, I'm okay with expanding our early voting. Although if we expand, I think we need to expand in a way that's demographically and politically balanced and has an equal representation from both of the major parties in our state when we place a new early voting location into action. And I think we also need to take into account the distance of a new early voting location from our current early voting locations. While I understand, I think that Commissioner Burrell made a good argument for the logistical advantages of the Louisiana State Exhibit Museum. I think it's awfully close to our current early voting locations and doesn't do a great service to those in other parts of the parish that are quite a distance from the current early voting location. Just my thoughts on that. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Okay, Commissioner Evers.
I'd just like, before we go further, to address the situation relative to the voting precinct. And I think we had a caller that asked a question about it. Okay, what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, and my colleagues, is that we do have one new early voting site that has been approved through the process, which goes through the state legislature first, then the Secretary of State, then in conjunction with our voter registrar's office. That one is in place. The funding is there and everything. Mm-hmm. The site is left up to determination of the Caddo Parish Commission.
That's correct.
Which is this one that we have in place. That's why we wanted this on the agenda today. As my grandmother used to say, a piece of something is better than 100% of nothing. We have one early voting site downtown, which has been in place for years. The suggestion that Mr. Burrell made was not to do anything that takes from partisan politics. A place that already had the logistics and possibly all of the infrastructure that's needed to put it in place. Just this one for 2020. The process that would have to be in place for 2021 is a resolution which we had planned to put on the floor asking a state representative or state representatives to sponsor through the legislative process, requesting 3 more early voting sites in Caddo Parish for 2021. You cannot usurp that process. This is temporarily. However, we can still vote to move it, depending upon the effectiveness and efficiency and the amount of activity that renders there. Nothing partisan, just trying to put something in place that has already been legislated, directed to us, and given permission and funded for this year, plain and simple. I would like to ask Ms. Bryant on my next concern. Is Ms. Bryant in today?
Yes, she is, sir.
Okay, Ms. Bryant, one of my constituents sent me, I guess it was a copy of a Facebook that somebody said that their property tax had tripled. And I got my statement the other day. I don't know if everyone else did or not. And of course, you know, we have deals in place, age, if you're a surviving widow of a veteran that died, things of this nature, income constraints that can either freeze your tax at a certain level. Also, Ms. Bryant, would you give the process in the event that any individual got a tax statement for this particular year and they are not satisfied with the evaluation process and the amount of tax that is projected that will be limited upon them? Isn't there a process? And isn't it spelled out within the documentation that the assessor sent? Did you read me, Ms. Bryant?
Ms. Bryant's muted.
We tried to unmute it from our end and it won't let us.
Maybe someone else is familiar with that process in administration.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Epson. There is an appeal process. They can contact the tax assessor's office to file an appeal. And typically they may have to get their property reassessed and take that information along with their request for reconsideration to the tax assessor's office and have them to reevaluate. Any citizens can act for that if they have a dispute about their taxes on their property.
Is there a time limit for that process to take place?
I'm not sure the time limit, but I think they ought to do it immediately. I would suggest to do it as soon as possible, but there is a process. They can go and file an appeal process, and we've had people that have done that. And if they're not satisfied with that answer, they can also come before you all in the commission. Okay.
If we would, let's research that. I think it appears to me as though it has been around September with the period of time that I've been here. And of course, I think they can come to us also.
Yes, sir.
It's a process that comes to us. Okay.
If they're not satisfied with the results they get from the tax assessor, they can appeal to the commission.
Right. And would you make sure before we get off today that that is articulated to the viewing public?
Yes, sir. We want to post it on our webpage.
Well, and then you can give it verbally too before we go off.
Oh, sure. I can.
We'll page you up verbally.
Yes, sir. That's fine. We'll do that.
All right. And I'd just like to state that I received my statement the other day. And of course, I'm entitled to a veteran's exemption. And I'm of an age. I'm of a financial deal, which would allow for certain things in reference to that. And I would ask that all these citizens would thoroughly read the statement that was sent out by the tax assessors, which I received mine day before yesterday. My taxes increased a modest 1.5%, which I have no issues with. And that amounted to me as $38 extra for a year. And of course, we know if those persons, if you itemize your federal taxes and you have enough deductions under the income tax law that property taxes are sizable expenses that you can use on your income tax. My second concern is, let's say we had this 2 o'clock special meeting today. Now, what prompted that? Did we we missed something at some point in time? I mean, why do we have that 2 o'clock meeting today relative to those issues?
Yeah, Commissioner Epperson, this is Jeff Epperson. The reason we had that is because when the news first came back 302, there were some items that were approved and not approved for the first round of meetings. If you'll recall, we had a teleconference special meeting and then a scheduled in-person meeting that followed that at the work session time and at the regular session time. And the special teleconference meetings were at 2 p.m. So because we weren't aware of how that would continue, we had to meet an advertising deadline, and we thought it best to stay consistent with the time it was originally advertised. So we went with 2 o'clock. Okay,
10-4, thank you. It just sort of puzzled me a little bit. You know, we got the 2 coming up on the other day. Dr. Wilson, relative to the CPAS, the Caddo Parish Animal Shelter issues,
Yes, sir.
everything is resolved there. Have you articulated and made it quite clear to everyone that we have policies in place? We have been operating for years. We have employees in place that have been there that are very amply qualified to handle any situations which arise, and make sure that we separate responsibilities as to what ours are, our employees are, as well as the general public. And I would state that I thought I heard something that somebody received an anonymous threat, a vendor or something. And I would suggest that we stop playing around with these people. And when we receive any kind of anonymous phone call or a threat, that we go to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They can find out where any call or any threat come from, because our employees do not, and I repeat, do not deserve those kind of negative actions that has been going on far too long. Mm-hmm. Also, I don't know how many of you were privy to get on the governor's teleconference this morning. I am the public relations director of our public relations ministry at my church, and I'm on the conference call that he does into the religious organizations. It was very, very enlightening, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very enlightening. We are playing Russian roulette with people's lives. For what reasons, I don't know, but this thing is serious. And if that call was taped, I would suggest that you all would pull it up and play it. This is a serious business. We are getting into the process where colleges and universities are trying to go back fully staffed. Our schools are trying to go back virtually as well as fully staffed. Can you imagine that those kids that go out and interact with other kids, be they elementary, middle, high school, or college, and then they go home each day, and that's going to spread. The worst is yet to come. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
You're muted, Mr. Vice President.
Ms. Bryant had her hand up to answer your question. She got unmuted. Commissioner Burrell, I got you up next.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Epperson, you had a question about the process to appeal your tax assessments?
Yes, ma'am. Somebody said that someone put something out there that their taxes has tripled.
Well, I don't know. Each person, if you had if there was a situation where a tax assessment went up by a certain amount, they may have received a notice from the tax assessor's office. If someone has an issue with their assessment, they can contact the tax assessor's office. And I think you have to do that by September 11th in order to ask for an adjustment or request an appeal. And it is helpful to bring information to support if they want an adjustment in that assessment, such as, you know, maybe a recent appraisal, any other type of documentation, but they do have till September 11th to do that. After September 11th, the appeals cannot be heard.
Ms. Bryant, does the commission have any involvement in the appealing process?
I think that after you go, there's a process after the appeal is made to the assessor if an adjustment is not made, but the initial process has to go through the assessor's office.
Right. And then if they aren't satisfied there, they can appeal to us. Am I correct? Be
Yes.
it business or personal.
Correct.
Mhm.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Burrell, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. VP. I wanted to go back and readdress the request that was made, because I really think that the views of some of my colleagues that the location was more of a partisan type of location, and also preference a certain race or the other. I think that that's ill-founded. Since there were only one location, as I understand it, that was funded for Caddo Parish, an additional location, then it would appear to me that if you would try to put it up north, that would not necessarily be a balance. If you put it out to the extreme west, that would not create a balance. If you put it to the extreme south, it would not create a balance. Since you only had one location that was added, it appeared to me from a geographical standpoint that it should be another central location, but more to the west, since our primary location right now for early voting is next to the river. You can't go any further east unless you're going over in Bossier and vote. So it really doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense to me that you would stick a voting location on extremes. This was not extreme. It is not that close to downtown. If you really look at it, I looked at it from another perspective, that being that far west and being within the city limits, you have a greater concentration of voters, both black and white, although you may have a slightly more, a majority of African Americans that may be in the city limits. But at the same time, when you look at it in terms of density, and you look at it in terms of economic wealth, many people moved to the rural or moved outside the city limits because of the white flight of the 80s, of the 70s and the 80s, partly because of racism, partly because of, I'm not sure what else. And secondly, some of them were seeking opportunities there where there was a perceived view that the city was not safe. Another view that they took, some of the more affluent people, they were looking for locations to build homes that were that had more property. That is when we had a manufacturing industry here and you had a higher level of income overall. So taking those factors into consideration, and given the fact that we need to be at a facility that I would assume that is governed by the state or governed by the parish, that location would have been more apropos than any other location and any other direction that you would have placed. So I kind of take issue with the fact that you would think that by placing it there in a location that could be very secure, most of the people in the city and outside the city, they come to the fair, so they're not as afraid that they say that they are. I lived there. I used to live right across Greenwood Road on Boss Avenue. So I think there's a lot more perception than there are, that there is reality in this. So again, I want to take issue with the fact that somehow that this location is one that is somehow embedded in partisanship and race and race and all of this other thing. We're just looking for a safe location, a place where you can social distance, as well as if the weather is inclement, like many times it is during the fall, then people will have to try to find a place to get under, to take shelter while they're waiting for early voting. And also you have a lot of elderly people that early vote. At least out there at the State Museum, you have disability ramps in all over the place. So it's very accessible. So I would ask my colleagues, as they say in Washington on the other side of the aisle, to reconsider that, because it has nothing to do with some of the factors that I heard today. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Commissioner Lazarus, you
up. My question is for Dr. Wilson. Dr. Wilson, didn't you speak to the registrar of voters, and he mentioned the location, potential location for early voting location for South Shreveport as a good location? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I did have a lengthy conversation again yesterday with Mr. Dale Sibley, and I was asking him to define that for me more. And he told me that it included the downtown area as well as out towards LB Road. And he mentioned all that. And I think he coined the term Metro Shreveport, which is the metropolitan area of Shreveport, but based on the number of people, will definitely can use another location somewhere in that area. And because our decision boils down to two things: either we do it based on the number of people, or we do with geographical considerations, one of the two. But if we were able to get the law changed to get more sites, we will have more latitude to do multiple locations. But right now, the question is before you all, what do you all desire in terms of a location? And yes, you have to make that decision on what location. Yes, we do have funding. Yes, we do have authorization. And what's lacking is the location and then the will to move. I mean, you have the will to move forward, but you just need to make a decision on what location was best serves everyone needs this time.
Point of information.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
You're welcome, sir.
Point of information.
I'll go ahead, Commissioner Burrell, then I got Commissioner Carter.
And this is, I'm addressing this back to Woody.
Yes, sir.
What does the Caddo voter registry position in making a determination of a location? They don't make that determination, do they?
No. So he didn't. But no, he
go ahead on.
They don't. They relied on us to make that determination. So I was inquiring as to what would be possible locations. We considered the library system and so on and so forth. And we did talk about the State Museum yesterday, and we thought that my conversation with Mr. Sibley, we thought that was a good location for the same reason that you mentioned, Commissioner Burrell. Out of the weather, restroom, parking, ramps. We're trying to look for an idea to suggest to you all at some point that you all would consider. But Mr. Sibley's discussion was based on the amount of population that he said that he would look at it based on population first and foremost, but will be up to the commission to decide ultimately.
Well, I would say too, I can understand that if all were equal, but all is not equal.
Okay.
When you have a population of the city where you have many of your voters, if you look at the number of voters and look at their conditions as to how they can get to a location, you have to take into consideration those type of issues also. I would rather have one in every location. And Mr. Lazarus being down in the South End, I think that would be great. But at the same time, most of those people down there are pretty wealthy. They can go anywhere they want to. Where your most difficulty is going to be are people who do not have transportation. That is one of the number one reasons why many people who are in the urban centers are not able to take jobs, because many times the manufacturing jobs was outside the city, or should I say on the periphery of the city. And then they have to take public transportation to those locations. They would also have to get child care, daycare. They can't take their kids and stand up in line for early voting. But people who are well-to-do and wealthy, they can do all of those things. So I wouldn't be so myopic in my view in making a determination of a location without taking into consideration other socioeconomic factors. Thank you.
Commissioner Cawthon, and you're muted.
Thank you, Vice President. Hey, this is for Dr. Wilson. I have two questions for you.
Yes, sir.
A, is there consideration with a third site? If you look at us in Tampa, East Baton Rouge Parish, Orleans Parish, Caddo Parish, we're the third largest parish in the state. So in what we're trying to do with the second location, is there a possibility of a third location, or that discussion has not been had?
The discussion, Commissioner Cawthon, deals with the changing the law. The Louisiana Revised Statute 1813 B1 have to be amended to give us the option to have additional sites beyond what is currently authorized. Because
okay, so we got two sites that are authorized.
Yes, sir. The primary site have to be in the proximity of the Caddo Parish courthouse by state statute. It has to be where it's located at. The second location could be anywhere where this Caddo Parish Commission Board desire it to be located, long as it meets certain facility requirements that's approved by the Secretary of State's office.
Okay. Well, that answers my second question. Thanks.
Okay.
May I interject a point of information?
Go ahead, Commissioner Evers.
I don't know if you heard my previous commentary. We'll have to have a some legislation passed in the 2021 legislature. And the proposal that I have on the table is to ask for 3 more sites and go through the process. Right. However, had we approved to add to the agenda today, it could have always come up for discussion and amendment. So you kind of cut your throat, 100% of one, 100% of nothing, or 2. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts.
Thank you, Mr. President, Vice President. I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that my colleagues said about the early voting locations. As many of you know, I've been advocating for early satellite voting locations for a few years now. And the goal is always and has always been intended to be able to serve the entire Caddo Parish during early voting locations during that season. However, where we are today, I'm very disappointed that we did not make a decision today to go forward because of where we are in the middle of this pandemic. I cannot say enough that we are still in a pandemic. Nothing has changed, and we need to do more to assist the citizens in whatever capacity necessary. We are facing some serious challenges as far as how people will actually get to the polls, and if we will even be able to get our early voting ballots mailed out in time. So with that being said, I think that we should have made a decision today to say at least we have one that we will know that will be up and running. And I also wanted to share something that Commissioner Carthorne said during our initial study of the early voting locations. Caddo Parish was just left off of the table from the state a long time ago, because when you look at smaller parishes that are so much smaller than Caddo, they've advocated long before now to have early voting satellite locations. So we were left out. So that's why we have to go back to the legislators to be included back at the table to expand our early voting locations. But again, commissioners, if there's something that you could reconsider today, I admonish you to do it so that we can provide this additional location for to help practice social distancing, to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Because if we get too many people at that location, then we have another problem that we'll have to deal with. Thank you.
All right, I see no one else, so I'll take the last communique. Dr. Wilson, is it true that our CPIS officers can arrest people for obstruction of law?
Yes, sir. The ones that are post-certified, sir, they don't have the authority to do that. And we have several that are post-certified and that they have completed the Sheriff's Academy. Okay, so that this as an observation for citizens to know that they can arrest if they need to for obstruction of law. That's correct. Okay. I also want to say congratulations on the Achievement Award for the community garden that's up in the MLK area. That was something that I was pushing because I knew that it was going to actually get that award because of the reason of producing fresh produce in areas like that. Also on the NACO annual conference, there was 2 appointments from Caddo Parish by the president. Commissioner Ken Epperson is appointed to the Veteran and Military Services Subcommittee. And I was also appointed to the Finance, Pension, and Intergovernmental Affairs Steering Committee as Vice Chair. 3 other things I want to talk about. The Second Amendment now has made it to the hood. So you having a lot of shootings in Shreveport. They also want to carry guns and everything else. So at some point in time, we're going to have to get some kind of education on the Second Amendment and what should be done. The legislation that I put forth a while back did not prohibit you to have whatever you wanted to have at your house. You could have had 1,000 guns at your house, but we was talking about having guns on the street. And so now those guns, because of the lack of education, people are getting guns, buying guns, pawn shops are running out of guns and out of ammunition. And so what's happening now is it's turning into Dodge City. People are killing people because law enforcement can't solve a crime fast enough. So therefore it's retaliation from a particular shooting that happened before. Until we get that education piece in place or some kind of legislation in place, it's going to get even worse. That just straight from the hood. The 2 things we added to the agenda, attempted to add to the agenda today, there was a couple of commissioners that asked for them to reconsider. If it's not reconsidered, I'm saying now that I would want to have it on the next work session coming up. And that's going to make it real tough to meet some of these deadlines, especially for the early voting. One of the reasons, I know everyone will want to have the early voting location in their precinct. But one of the reasons that the fairgrounds and the State Museum was chosen was because it's centrally located, because the fairgrounds was built there for a reason. It just wasn't on the outer edge of town. It was built there for a reason. People are used to going there. They know how to get there because of sporting events that have been there, concerts have been there. The Secretary of State had wanted to utilize the Oil and Gas Museum because of the infrastructure. Well, to me, if you got that infrastructure at the Oil and Gas Museum, the same infrastructure should be at the Louisiana State Exhibit Museum. So that infrastructure that's already in place
would make it a whole lot easier to set up for an early voting satellite location with crunch time going on as we speak as now. When you're talking about putting it into a library or some other building, you have to go through a whole bunch of infrastructure to make sure that that facility can hold the necessary things that it needs to have as far as the network and the internet and all that. So that was one of the reasons why. I mean, I would love to have it in District 2, but you know, I wasn't being selfish when this came up and we was talking about it, and Roy said, well, the State Museum, fine with me, because it has adequate parking, it has covered areas so that you can sit in there if the weather's inclement during the week, because we know how our weather gets in November, then in October, that we can actually have somewhere that people can be social distance, they can go and vote. And that's what we want to do. We want to increase voter turnout. I mean, we should always want to increase voter turnout. We should never want dismal numbers for voter turnout. And so it wasn't anything dealing with political party trying to do this or do that. It was picking a location that has easy access to, easy access from. People could ride the bus there if they wanted to, and it accommodates everybody. It's centrally located. If it wasn't that centrally located, you wouldn't have the fairgrounds there. You wouldn't have the hospital there. You have a hospital. You have 2 hospitals there. So it's just there for a reason, and it's centrally located for our area. I think that covers everything that I wanted to talk about. See if anybody else is on the board. See no one else. Next item.
Hey, before we move on, I just want to call to your attention. This is where the certificate of teleconference is attached. No action is required, but we will move through. We don't have a president's report, public hearing on zoning ordinances. There are none. There's no public hearing on ordinances at this time. There's also no zoning ordinances for final passage at this time. And that brings us to ordinances for final passage, where we do have one item. You want me to go ahead and read the item?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Move for adoption.
Second. Let me read it first.
Okay.
Yeah, I was at least read the title of what it is so people will know.
Sure. Ordinance number 5967 of 2020 is an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the general fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for COVID-19 testing sites and small business support by issuing COVID kits and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
So it was moved by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Carthon to approve ordinance 5967 of 2020. Are there any, well, Commissioner Jackson, do you have anything you want to say on that?
No, sir.
Commissioner Atkins, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'm supportive of this ordinance. However, I do want to remind us all of some discussions we had when discussing it initially. The numbers that we have budgeted here are up to numbers. Is that correct, Commissioner Cawthorn?
Correct.
And the COVID kits the distribution of those kits will be handled through the parish. Is that correct?
Correct.
And lastly, Erica, I guess, or Haley, I guess we'll be tracking, how will we be tracking these expenditures and knowing where we stand in each budget item along the way? I don't know if she's there.
Commissioner Atkins, this is Haley. We will have to, once legal drafts the CEA and how we would operate this program, we would have to determine then how we would track those expenses.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure that when we do document this agreement, we have proper means of tracking the expenditures. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Point of clarification.
Commissioner Jackson, you on the
Yeah.
board, you want to, and
Yeah, I just got a clarification. How would we, she said legal would draft a CEA. Legal would draft a CEA with the parish? I'm confused on that part.
I was under the understanding that the 100 men of Shreveport was going to do, this is something different?
No, I thought we were talking about the COVID kits. I thought I heard somebody say the COVID kits were going to be done by the parish.
Yeah.
In
Okay,
terms
well,
of this, go ahead, Haley.
Yeah.
I guess the disconnect is the distribution of the COVID kits and the purchasing of the COVID kits. The purchasing of the COVID kits would be tracked as we purchased, and then I would get reimbursed through CARES Act as we purchase the items
Right.
that go into the kits.
Right.
That
That's
would
what I
be
wanted to make
tracked.
sure. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure. The
The
COVID kit.
idea of how to, yeah, the idea of dispensing or dispersing the kits, that's what I don't know how we'll do that.
Well, I think you just would. Yeah, that's something we can talk about offline. I just wanted to make sure that we wasn't confusing the COVID kits with the testing, because I don't see a need to do a CEA
Yeah,
for that.
I think that I did. I think I did confuse the two. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
Okay, there's somebody with Commissioner's iPad. I don't know who that is.
It's Commissioner Telefello.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir, that's me, and I appreciate it. Thank you. I think I just had a quick question. Well, one, the purchase was already asked and answered, and the distribution of the COVID kits, those were for businesses. Am I correct in presuming that?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. And is it also the presumption that we will, once approved, that then we'll figure out how to distribute who will get the COVID kits?
In our last,
yeah.
If I may address Commissioner Telefello.
Yes, please.
Chair. In our last discussion, we had a conversation with Haley, and Haley was explaining that there's a methodology prescribed by the state by which the kits need to be distributed. And we have not been afforded the opportunity to hear back from her in terms of which methodology we would use. But in terms of the distribution, we're going to get with Haley, because it needs to be done in compliance with what was issued at the state for reimbursement. And so that's the mechanism by which we can go offline with Haley to get that distribution put in place.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, Mr. Cawthorn.
You're welcome.
I see no one else on the board.
I'm
Roll
on
call.
there. I thought I was on.
Oh, I thought that was old. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to just state that I will support it, but I will reiterate what I've said in the past. I don't think that this is enough with school starting, with a lot of movement. I think football, folks are still planning to do football at some point. And I think we'll be back here in a month and a half or so trying to figure out how do we go forward. And I think the issue is not so much if there's a will to do it. I think what we eventually going to run into is a timing issue. Haley, Erica, do y'all know when? Isn't there like an October, November date that our federal funds have to be expended?
September 30th is when all the funds have to be expended and the checks have to have cleared the bank in order to be on the application that is due October the 1st to the state. And that'll be the third and last application process for CARES.
So, and then at that point, they will redirect the monies, or they could, not saying they will, but there's a high probability that they will redirect those monies to another parish. And then from that point, if another parish does not utilize them, it will go to the state. And the state is already sounding the alarm, basically saying, the unemployment trust fund is running dry. So I just want us to realize that, I think we're going to still have some needs. I think the problem we're going to eventually run into is we will just run out of time. And there are going to be so many unmet needs that we will not have done what we need to do to address them with the resources that we have. But the dollars are not going to go back to Washington, D.C. on a check. They're going to be spent in Louisiana. And I would hope that we would do as much as we can for the citizens of Caddo. Dr. Wilson, Haley, that expense report or that finance report that y'all provided us, are we kind of scratching pennies around? And I know I'm not asking us to spend every dime that we got, but are we in a financial bind? Are we able to, just in a sustainable manner, are we able to make these type of transactions fiscally? Because I know the issue for the city of Shreveport is they cannot fiscally front the money as they have to for this program. Are we in such dire predicament?
No, sir.
Okay. So I just wanted to just put that out there as food for thought to the group, is that, you know, there are going to continue to be some more needs. And I just hope and pray that, you know, the state, when they decide to redirect the monies, they don't redirect all of the money. But I got a feeling that that they will redirect a large part of it.
I can assure you of that.
Okay. I had a conversation with a state senator last Friday who assured me as well that if the money is not spent, they will spend it at the state. So, but the first stop will be, it will go to places like Orleans and East Baton Rouge and Jefferson and Lafayette parishes. And I don't know that the issue is more worse or the need is more pressing there than it is here. So just want us to be mindful of that as we go forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Vice Chair.
All right. See no one else. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Abstaining.
and Commissioner Talaferro.
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson.
Yes.
That motion carries with 11 in support and 1 abstention.
Next item.
One moment, I'm sorry, I'm getting a
State my reason for abstaining.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I forgot to say the reason. Go ahead,
Yes.
if you could state it.
I am employed at Oshner LSU Health.
Thank you, Commissioner Gage Watts. Okay, our next item moves to zoning ordinances, which we have none today. We do, and that brings us to ordinances for introduction by title. And our first is introduced ordinance number 5968 of 2020, an ordinance amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Economic Development Fund and the Oil and Gas Fund for the year 2020 to provide an appropriation for Southern University at Shreveport's nursing program and to otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Next item.
Next item is going to be, it takes us down to resolutions. So we go through work session minutes. We have none. Resolutions is our next section. Adopt resolution number 64 of 2020 as your first resolution under that section. It's a resolution authorized.
Moved by the chair.
Second.
Moved by the chair and seconded by Commissioner Atkins to adopt resolution 64 of 2020.
Mr. Chairman.
I got my blue hand.
Yeah, Commissioner Jackson and then Commissioner Epperson.
Yeah, moved in Globo and adopt resolution number 64 and 65.
I second it. It's been moved and properly second to adopt resolution number 64, resolution number 65 of 2020. You have anything to say on that, Commissioner Jackson?
No, just in the interest of time.
All right, Commissioner Epperson.
I'd like for the attorney to explain the situation relative to that council being retained and what's the situation with the Chesapeake bankruptcy.
Commissioner Epperson, council is being retained because bankruptcy, especially as a creditor, is a specialized area. We would be one of Chesapeake's creditors. They have several leases with us and we may be owed royalties on those leases. So in order for us to properly assert the claim, we need an attorney who handles that specialized area to file the claim on the parish's behalf and monitor the bankruptcy, which is on something called a fast track in the bankruptcy court.
Okay, so therefore, what we are stating is possibility through bankruptcy, Chesapeake could try to circumvent their obligations to us.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, and so yeah, we should have pretty good penny worth of royalties coming in, even though they're slow and small now, but collectively. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
See no one else? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hopkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yeah.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Copeland,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Talaferro,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Chavez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lazarus,
Yes.
and Commissioner Epperson. Commissioner Epperson, I didn't hear your vote.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously with 12 in support and none in opposition. And
Next
so
item.
we have no old business or new business today, so that brings us to communiques and committee reports.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. VP.
Commissioner Burrell, Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Atkins.
Put me on the board, sir.
All right, and Commissioner Gage Watts.
Thank you, sir.
I tapped my blue hand.
Okay, I got you.
You ain't got that down pat now. Just one thing, Mr. VP, wanted to recognize the death and the funeral of Miss Lily Bradford, who has been the director for the Northwest Louisiana Sickle Cell Disease Association for I believe it's 7 parish area. She died of COVID with some underlying complications. Went to a funeral of a friend which lives in the neighborhood and wound up contracting it from what I understand, some relatives may have come in for that funeral. So I'm only saying that to say how serious this stuff is, and we don't know where it would come from and under what circumstances. Lily has been a pillar of this community, raising money and working with kids and adults of sickle cell, which is a dreaded disease that actually attack the red blood cells. And it is not an African American disease per se. People of Greek descent, Italian descent, and others along the Mediterranean also contract a form of sickle cell. For those who somehow think that it's only a Black disease, as some put it. But again, she would be sorely missed because I've worked with her for the last 20 years, being the chairman of the Sickle Cell Anemia softball tournament here, which is one of our major sporting events in this city. So would like to send out prayers to her family, to Dr. Hugh Bradford, who is her husband, and her daughter, Tari Bradford, who, for those of you who don't know, and some of you do because she's been around a long time working with Senator Landrieu and in other capacities, that's there, and her brother, Dr. Bradford. Her brother is a medical doctor, and I think it was 2 of them. So again, I just want to send those condolences out on behalf of my family and hopefully on behalf of the commission. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Burrell, for noting that. In fact, the lady at the top screen, at the top, I don't know if y'all can see my graphic, as I talk. The collage there, but that's Miss Lily Bradford at the top, along with several others who have passed from COVID-19. And so, the email that I got yesterday that I copied y'all on, with you there, the mentality is let's just move on and let's just get back to normal. But life will not be normal for a lot of people this Christmas. And the reality is it could have a lot of these could have been prevented. These were not folks who were out at a party being haphazard with COVID-19. And so the reality is just moving on or getting back to normal is a way to tell people how to cope and deal with their trauma. And I hope that we as a society will at least stop to understand the depth of grief and loss that people are dealing with. I've never had to do so many condolences and well wishes in my life. So, y'all can't see the picture. I'm sorry.
We can see it.
Can y'all? Okay.
People that's on Facebook can't see it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So yeah. But I just want to make sure that we don't forget them. And I understand that a lot of times I have this sense and desire to kind of just want to go back to doing things like I normally would do, but I can't. I just cannot do it right now. And so I hope that we will come to an understanding on that. I'm also going to ask, I don't know if I should be asking administration or legal, or if I should be asking President Chavez. I'd like for us to look at maybe having an emergency meeting to schedule. I didn't know that the deadline was September 30th. I thought it was somewhere in October, at the end of October, or somewhere in November, because we do have, I believe, some opportunities to do some other things with our COVID funding. And I know that there's at least one or two more opportunities. And if we do that in September on 2 readings, we will definitely run out of time. So I'd like for us to look to see if we can do a special meeting to take up some matters under special order and get them done so that we can get these things done in enough time to be able to meet those pressing deadlines for our COVID-19 CARES Act funding. So that's it for me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I just wanted to loop back to the early voting site. I want to be clear that I'm not trying to be selfish in where I think a location should be. I'm not pushing for it to be in District 9. I'm just pushing for a location that seems to me, it's just my vote. So to me, I would be seeking a vote that looks to be demographically and politically balanced. And I understand the logistical advantages that you all have cited for the fairgrounds. That makes sense, but it just would not be my preferred location. And I don't see myself getting on board with that location, but of course I'm only one vote. To me, I like the Oil City location that was originally proposed by the Registrar of Voters. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
That was by the Secretary of State, not the Registrar of Voters.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts.
Thank you, Vice President Johnson. I want to begin, first of all, by echoing some of the sentiments and giving my sincerest condolences to Tyree Bradford and her family during their loss of Miss Lily Bradford. And we just thank God so much for everything that she has done for our Northwest Louisiana Sickle Cell Disease Center and bringing so much awareness to our area. And there is a wealth of knowledge that she has brought to this community, and there will be a huge shoe to be filled for her position. Nevertheless, we're looking forward in and hoping that we will be able to carry her legacy on that she has began. So I just wanted to publicly say that she is definitely, her family is definitely in our thoughts and in our prayers. I also wanted to piggyback on something else that is being said about us and moving back to things as normal or as normal as we can be. And again, I must say that we are still in a pandemic and that nothing has changed. There is no cure, there is no vaccine in sight. And there is still a lot of people who are not wearing masks, and we continue to be warned. You know, I believe that God always allows warning before destruction. And it does, this disease, this virus, it does not have a face, or it does not have a specific type of person that it is looking to attack. None of us are exempt. And I think that a lot of things that has been said about us coming back into the chambers, for one, is something that is not being considered, and that is practicing social distancing, because we are still sitting, you know, on top of one another. We've all received messages, not from my personal constituents, and don't know who these citizens are, that are saying things about some of us that are not willing to come to work. But I believe since this pandemic has been going on, if I've never worked hard as a parish commissioner, I've been working harder during this pandemic. And I think that we have done an excellent job in getting things done. And for whatever reason that it has been halted, it has nothing to do with the legislation. I just believe that it's some internal things that need to be straightened out, but that's a different situation. However, I think it is up to all of us to protect each other and never to put ourselves in an unhealthy environment. I also want to remind the citizens to continue to mask up, as it's our responsibility to help to save lives and to stop the spread of this disease. Wearing masks is one of the things that does work. Washing your hands and practicing social distancing. We've seen a lot of people ganging up lately, and this is not the time to drop our guards. We know that children are going back to school. Some of them, at least half of them, has elected to go back to school, and we know that those are some things that we're going to have to face. But with that being said, we need to do everything that we can publicly to continue to mask up and stay safe. I want to remind everyone that the Census 2020 deadline is September 30th. We have a Caddo Complete Count Census Committee, and they're working very hard to assist us in making sure that the citizens of Caddo are counted. So if you have not filled out your census for 2020, you still have a little time left. Please do it. We need those dollars in our parish. I also want to say thank you to the Caddo Parish Animal Services for always quickly responding to our citizens' needs, especially to our seasoned citizens. My 94-year-old constituent wanted to make sure that I personally said thank you for coming out to her home and making sure that you left something to help her with those large rats and those mosquitoes. And lastly, well, no, I have two other things. First, I want to say thank you to the ladies of the Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, the Eta Psi Sigma chapter, for their assistance on last Saturday, helping me pass out over 2,000 masks to Caddo citizens. People were lined up as early as 6:50 a.m. So we hope that we were able to get everyone. If not, we hope to get another one going very soon. And United Way is hosting an essential needs drive, and you can find out more information about how to give by visiting United Way of Northwest Louisiana website. Lastly, the Future Leaders Conference that was held on last Saturday by Zoom provided a wealth of knowledge for our youth. There were dynamic speakers and a host of national entertainers that dropped in to share encouraging words to our youth. I want to thank the sponsors, Morning Star Baptist Church, Pastor Theron Jackson, Seedlings, Project Seek, and Walmart 450 for allowing me to host and join in the continuous support to our youth, even during this pandemic. Remind everyone to take care, stay safe, and mask up. Thank you.
Commissioner Epperson.
Yes, I'd like to acknowledge and give my condolences to the families of Mr. John Woodard, of Woodard's Heating and Air Conditioning, also a member of Leonard C. Barnes American Legion Post 450. We interred him about 2 Saturdays ago. Some of you may know him. He's a longtime person that came up originally back in the olden days, the 90s, with the Minority Business Council, with people such as Jerry Thomas, S.P. Davis, Willie Singleton. Had a very strong Minority Business Council going in those days. Also, Mr. Chairman, you had spoken relative to the Second Amendment deal. Well, also there was legislation that I think that was passed by the state that went into effect, I believe, the 1st of July or the middle of July, August or something, mandating by the Louisiana State Legislature that no local governments would impose any kind of legislation dealing with or trying to circumvent Second Amendment rights. So let's look that up and watch that. Also, Dr. Wilson, he won't say it, but I picked up that Mr. Kevin Samuels that works at our Caddo Parish Animal Shelter received a very distinguished award for his military service. And I hope that you will make that publicly at the next meeting, because we won't let everybody know that we have first-class staff. We don't just arbitrarily walk out and pick people up off of the streets and put square pegs in round holes. It just doesn't work that way.
Yes, sir.
Also, we make sure that you are not jeopardizing our personnel at Barksdale Air Force Base, Fort Polk, or our military veterans of World War II and the Vietnam era. Wear your mask. You never know if you're out in a grocery store or at some communal place where you are visiting. You may be standing next to an individual that's a member of Delta Force or some other covert military operation that you could affect that individual, and this will affect our national security. Also bear in mind the same thing with our Louisiana National Guards. These are the same citizens that's next to you that you never know, that have to come out in uniform, build emergency hospitals, work on the line with COVID testing. And for what you know, there are many of them getting ready to be deployed. And there's a COVID outbreak within that unit, which could jeopardize our national security. So please don't be so selfish as to not wear your mask. Thank you.
Okay, I see no others on communiques. Next item.
All right, that brings us to citizens' comments, late arrivals. We did receive one electronic comment during the meeting. Would you like me to go ahead and read that?
Yes.
Okay. Our comment comes from Mr. RJ Johnson, who says, as a member of the Parish Board of Election Supervisors, I am in full support of the establishment of another satellite voting location. Our parish needs it, and we should make the process easier or more convenient to them. This location has adequate parking, social distancing can be done, and it provides accessible facilities for the public. And that's signed RJ Johnson as Caddo Parish Board of Election Supervisors, also chairman of the Caddo Parish Democratic Executive Committee and the secretary for the Democratic State Central Committee. And that's all of the public comments that we've received.
Next item.
Move to adjourn.
And second, and see everybody next time.